Hello and welcome to this pre-recorded training event in relation to the BTEC Level 3 Nationals in Sport and specifically that 2019 pathway, looking at Unit E and a quick overview of the requirements of the unit as well as recommended support to help you to prepare your students adequately and also help them through that assessment process for this particular unit. So aims and objectives for the session is that we are going to explore the structure of the Pearson Set Assignment. We will review the guidance documents for Unit E and in particular the new release document for academic year 21-22. From there, we'll also look at the approaches that you might take to design your assignment brief, and we will discuss that a little bit later on in today's session. And then from there, we will review some of the support materials that are available, as well as areas that you might guide your learners to in order to gain more understanding, more knowledge, and also some supporting materials to help them develop their evidence that's required for Unit E purposes. Firstly, when we look at Unit E is common across all four pathways of the 2019 BTEC National Suite of qualifications. Here, it is a second year unit for the four pathways that are listed on screen. So that is for sport and outdoor activities, sports coaching and development, sport fitness and personal training, and then sport and excellence and performance. For the three pathways for sport and outdoor activities, sport fitness and personal training, and sports coaching and development, Unit E is a second year unit that's applicable to all of the extended diploma sizes of qualifications for those three different vocational pathways. For the sport and excellence and performance, Unit E is applicable to both the diploma and the extended diploma sizes of qualifications. Again, it's still our year 2 unit. And when we think of the four pathways, Unit E is a year 2 unit simply due to the fact that it allows learners to demonstrate their knowledge and understanding that they have gained throughout the previous year's course, so the first year of their delivery, and then be able to apply it appropriately to a specific topic that has been devised by Pearson. And as I said earlier, that will be reviewed when we actually look at the guidance document and the current topic and theme areas for this academic year. So always a year 2 unit. Therefore, first year of each of these programs should be a developmental year for those learners in order to develop knowledge and understanding across a variety of different sporting areas that relate to their specific vocational pathway that they are studying towards. The focus of Unit E is to prepare learners for the ability to be able to carry out independent research. And when we think of that independent research aspect, this forms a vital part of that higher educational setting and the courses that learners may well progress onto once they have completed their 2-year BTEC qualification. So on completion of Unit E, learners should be able to propose and carry out independent research within a range of topic and subject areas that link specifically to their pathway. As well as that, it will help them to develop problem solving and analytical skills that are highly valued in that higher education setting, as well as in vocational employment. Therefore, it will prepare learners for a variety of different situations, no matter what their goal is moving forwards in their careers. When we think of the assessment that makes up, or the types of assessment that make up the assessment process on these 2019 suite of qualifications, all assessments are internally assessed. When we look at Unit E, it's just slightly different to the assessments that we are generally used to when we think of BTEC qualifications and that internal assessment process. Here, when we think of Unit E is the only unit on all of those suites of qualifications that is internally assessed, but it is based on a Pearson Set Assignment. And here, that really links into the set themes and topics that Pearson will release at the start of the summer term, so that centres can prepare adequately for delivery around that new theme and topic that the Pearson Set Assignment will be devised in relation to. It still has the same principle as all other internal assessments, and here it will still be marked by you, the teacher, or marked by the centre, and it will still go through a verification process by Pearson, exactly the same way as all other internal assessments go through. So it will be linked to that standards verification process that normally takes place once every academic year. And we will discuss quality assurance a little bit later on. The only difference is that the topic and the theme will be set by Pearson. So therefore, you, the teacher, will not have the option to choose a specific subject area that learners will generate their assessment materials around. So when we think of this Pearson Set Assignment, it is designed to allow learners an opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge and skills that might be necessary within their industry, but also that knowledge and skill level that's necessary to manage an individual assignment. The tutor for the particular unit will develop an assignment based on the theme and topics that are set by Pearson each academic year. So remember that those themes and topics will be different each academic year. And as mentioned previously, those will be released in June, so at the start of that summer term. And the actual themes and topics themselves will become active as of the July of that particular year. They will remain active until the following July, when a new theme and new topics will be released so as to stretch and challenge future learners. In relation to the annual release of the theme and topic, this follows a process of industry, academic review, and validation of specific themes and topic areas. Pearson will consult with sport industry specialists and academics in particular vocational areas to identify an appropriate theme and topic for that specific academic year. And as mentioned, you will find that latest theme and topic release documentation on the Pearson Qualifications website. We will, in a couple of slides' time, look at this academic year's release document and theme release document. So therefore, we will see exactly where we can find that on the Pearson website. When we think of internal assessment, the same process should be followed as other internally assessed units. Here, when devising that assignment brief or that assignment task, it should cover all assessment criteria within specific learning aims. And here we're actually looking at devising one assignment brief to cover all learning aims for this particular unit. Remember, assessment of specific criteria within a learning aim generally cannot be split. So therefore, it must be assessed as a complete entity. When we think about learner feedback, the normal feedback rules apply. So during teaching, you as the teacher, you are able to provide as much feedback as you would like, using your own professional judgment in relation to your learners, including aspects of how they might improve their work and how they might generate a specific research project to meet the requirements of Unit E. Once we get to that assessment point, and once you have set deadlines, start date and deadline date for this particular unit, you can provide encouragement and general support, such as confirmation of deadlines and clarification of the assignment brief that's been set and the tasks that have been set within it. But you must not comment on specific achievement or specific criteria, since the learners at this point are expected to work independently. Therefore, before setting that start date, deadline date for that assignment, it's really vital that all components of unit content are addressed and have been delivered to learners so that they fully understand the requirements and the content that will have to be covered within the assessment process. As well as this, you can use that preparation time to prepare learners as to the expectations of the assessment criteria. Once learners have met that deadline date and they have submitted their work, so following assessment, you can comment on what has been achieved and why they have achieved it. And here you can also provide general feedback on how well the learner has performed. You still cannot comment, however, on what has not been achieved and why. And you also cannot provide feedback that includes direction as to how the learner can improve their evidence and achieve higher grade boundaries. Same internal process with resubmissions. The learner, if suitable, will be allowed one resubmission for this unit, and therefore the same resubmission time frame links to Unit E as other internally assessed units. So here, learners are allowed to resubmit their assignment work once and within 15 working days of that initial assessment decision being released to the learner. Remember, prior to release of that assessment grade, the work as other internally assessed units should have been internally verified by the appropriate course or unit internal verifier. From here, once it's been verified, if there are learners that you feel should be allowed that resubmission attempt, then again, that lead internal verifier for the programme should authorise that one resubmission opportunity for the relevant learners. And remember, there are some conditions that learners should meet in order to be eligible for that resubmission. So learners must have met all those initial deadlines or any agreed extensions that have been set by the assessing tutor. You, the tutor, must also be convinced that the learner will be able to provide that improved evidence without any further specific guidance or support provided by you, the assessor. And the last condition is that you and the learner have confirmed that the evidence originally submitted was authentically the learner's own work. If those three conditions are met, then the lead internal verifier may authorise that one resubmission opportunity for that particular learner. Again, for this internally assessed unit, if we have learners who don't quite meet all of the relevant pass standard work for that particular unit, then they may be eligible also for that one retake opportunity if it's deemed necessary. For that retake opportunity, the process is that you, the teacher, would set a new task or assignment brief that would only target the pass criteria that learner had not originally achieved in their original assignment attempts. That includes their first attempt as well as their resubmission attempt. So therefore, this retake is over and above those two attempts. Retakes must only be utilised for those learners who have not met all pass criteria, and therefore on that retake opportunity, learners cannot be awarded any higher grade than a pass. Reminders for these retakes: you must set a new task or assignment that's only targeted at that pass criteria that they have not achieved in that original assignment. You cannot award a merit or distinction grade for any retake assignment. And the same procedures for submission and authentication of evidence should be visible for each learner where appropriate. When we think of that quality assurance process, if we do have retake opportunities, then during that standards verification process, the standards verifier will want to see evidence of any retakes in the sample that they will review as part of that quality assurance process. Remember, learners are only allowed one retake to achieve those pass criteria that they've not previously achieved on first attempt or resubmission attempt. And once they've had that retake opportunity, if they do not meet all of the pass requirements of Unit E, then no further submission attempts nor retake attempts are allowed after this. So let's just look at the purpose of this Unit E set assignment. The first purpose is to allow standardization of learner work. What this means is that, as mentioned on the previous slide, this unit will be reviewed annually by your standards verifier. Therefore, the standards verifier can standardize that work, and they can actually look at the quality of work and how that work meets the levels and requirements of the unit across all centres. Therefore, it will be a standardisation process that is used across all standards verifiers for this programme area. They will also review that the assignment briefs are appropriate and provide any help and guidance and support moving forwards to future academic years. And they will also look at grade decisions and the types of assessment feedback that have been provided by that assessor for that particular unit. As well as this, it will also look at the internal verification process and make sure that that process is robust so as to pick up any discrepancies or issues that have arisen with this particular unit, as well as other units on the programme. The second purpose, and I think the key purpose, is so that Pearson can look at sharing good practice so as to help to prepare you, the teachers, but also so that learners can be prepared for future cohorts as to the types of research that they might be asked to undertake as part of this unit, but also to help them to develop those transferable skills to successfully move forwards, whether it be into a higher education setting or to that vocational workplace setting. So moving forwards, Pearson will look to share good practice in relation to the themes, such as innovative approaches to delivery, the use of appropriate digital literacy, and enhancements, as mentioned, of those learner employability skills and employer engagement aspects. As well as that, the aim is to provide a common framework for centres to develop work that will allow cross-sector benchmarking through that standardisation of learner work and identification and sharing of those best practice elements in relation to teaching and learning. And it's hoped moving forwards that Pearson will share best practice results with all centres on an annual basis. Timescale for this will be notified by Pearson at an appropriate point moving forwards. So as mentioned, the unit is assessed through that centre set assignment, and here you will be provided with a theme, and then Pearson will provide you with chosen topics that link to that specific theme that will then allow you as the teacher to design an appropriate assignment brief that will allow learners to implement a research project relating to some aspect of that vocational pathway of sport. And it will also link to those 4 different qualification suites. So each qualification area will have different topics, but they will all have the same theme to focus that research around. And we will look at that Pearson Set Assignment Guide and the theme release documents moving forwards in this session. Remember, the whole focus of Unit E is to allow learners to develop those research skills, for them to be able to interpret and analyse a range of information that will be focused on a specific area that is relevant to their qualification pathway. With regards to that Pearson published guidance, this will also provide you with further guidance and support as to how to implement these different topics into an appropriate assignment brief. In respect to each pathway, you will find this guidance document in the internal assessment section of those supporting course materials area of the Pearson website. It will be placed underneath the guidance section, and as mentioned, I will link into this document a little later on so you can see how to navigate that website appropriately and find it quite quickly. The key thing to note here is that you can see that there's a little silver padlock next to that document. What that does mean is that you do need a username and a password to have access to download that document. This is what's classified as your Edexcel Online username and password that should have been created for you by your exams officer so that you can access any documentation that requires that secure access or that password protected access. If you don't currently have that Edexcel Online username and password, then please contact your exams officer, who should be able to set this up for you and allow you to have access within 48 to 72 hours, but it is normally quicker than that. So contact your exams officer and they should be able to do that fairly quickly for you. We will come back to the published guidance a little later on and review it as part of today's session. So what I would like you to do now is just have a quick review of the specification for Unit E. There are two questions that I'd like you to think about, and I'd like you just to take 5 minutes to just have a review of that Unit E, the content, and try to answer those two questions in relation to your centre and your learners. So the first question would be, what type of resources would you need access to in order to deliver this unit effectively? And then the second question, what sorts of themes can you think of that would work best for your learners in your centre? So I'd like you just to pause the recording for about 5 minutes, have a review of that specification, and then try to develop some answers in relation to the two questions that are posed on screen. So let's think about these two questions. And question one, what resources will you need to access? So I think the key resources that you will need to have access to for your students to be successful in both the planning and the creation of assignment materials will be access to things such as computers, laptops, and the internet. And remember that this is where we can integrate learners' own devices. So you might ask them to possibly bring in their own laptops, or it could be tablets, and they might even use their mobile phones for this purpose so that they can do research. As well as that, they will also need access to library resources and some of those online resources that you might well have in place currently, or that you might need to access through a portal or some other means. Here, specifically areas such as topic-specific books or those journal resources that can help learners to understand and be able to generate assignment evidence appropriately for the specific theme and topic area. There are some particular websites that are useful, and we will look at those a little bit later on in today's session, but notably areas such as Google Scholar, where you can search for specific topic areas, and that will bring up for you relevant journal articles and access to books that might help learners then be able to create that evidence appropriately. But again, we will look at that a little bit later on in the session today. Second question, what sorts of themes do you think would work best for your learners in your centre? So again, this is centre specific, But remember that it can link to any aspect of your specific pathway that you're delivering. Therefore, there are a massive variety of topic areas that could be used. If we think about this year's topic, if you've had a look at that Unit E guidance document, this year's topic is linked to the evolution of technology in sport, whereas last academic year's topic was looking at barriers to participation and then linking it into those 4 vocational pathways appropriately. Therefore, moving forwards, it could go in any direction. And that's probably why it's most important to adequately prepare your learner prior to undertaking this Unit E assessment. So when we think of the relationship between those themes, topics, and the assignment brief itself, again, even prior to themes and topics being released, planning and delivery for this particular unit can still start and can be put in place simply when we look at it in relation to the essential content of that Unit E research project. Remember that theme and topic will just provide contextualization for that assessment process, but all of those key learning areas could be delivered prior to that incorporation of that theme and topic area that's been chosen by the centre. So when we think about the actual content of that Unit E, remember that the key learning aims here for Unit E are learners being able to propose a research project in sport, and that will link to eventually those themes and those topics that have been chosen. But here it's vital that learners understand how to create a research proposal and then form a hypothesis for that research, the purpose of that research. As well as that, they should also understand how they collect relevant data for that research, as well as linking that to the validity and reliability of that data collection, as well as the actual data itself in relation to that purpose of the research topic that they've chosen or have been allocated. When we think of learning aim B, they are here, or learners should be able to apply investigation skills for their research project. And therefore, they are looking to apply research practice principles to an investigation of a specific topic. And lastly, that learning aim C, learners are looking to be able to draw conclusions from a research project in a particular area of sport. Therefore, here, learners should be looking at interpreting any data or any information that they've collected during the research for their project, as well as being able to draw conclusions from that data and information that they've collected, as well as being able to appropriately present that information. Therefore, a lot of that teaching could take place before actually allocation of specific topic areas were introduced. Looking at obviously that presentation, how they would collect data, what types of data would be appropriate for particular topic areas, and linking it back to that sporting context, and then looking at how they should actually structure their project. Then we can look at including that topic area so that they can go on and actually fulfill the research element of it in order to create that research project. Remember, in terms of that assignments brief that's set, It must provide the learner with the opportunity to achieve all of those learning aims. And when we look at the assessment criteria, we can see that there is linked assessment criteria, and therefore, when we create that assignment brief, we can split it into different tasks, but because of the linkage of the distinction criteria relating to learning aim B and learning aim C, we would be looking at the possibility of 2 tasks set within that assignment brief, so as to fulfill the requirements of the assessment criteria. The other key thing or key area to look at in that unit specification is the essential information for assessment decisions. That essential information will help to guide you, the assessor, as to the requirements of each of those learning aims, and link it specifically back to the requirements of those assessment criteria. This will outline the requirements for pass, merit, and distinction for each of those learning aims or interlinked learning aims where appropriate. That will then tell you exactly what type of evidence learners should be creating in order to meet those different grade boundaries. It is key that all of that essential content is delivered so as learners are able to apply that knowledge and understanding appropriately to that generation of that research project. And with that assignment brief in mind, it is really key that when you develop that assignment brief, that it should be written so as to make clear to learners how their work links to the topic area and links to those assessment criteria, so that it reflects to them exactly what they are going to be assessed on. So when we think of the role of the tutor for this Unit E, it is your role as the tutor to provide initial guidance in the planning and of that learner assessment, and also to monitor learner development and progress throughout that unit. As well as that, you should be incorporating regular monitoring meetings, not with just your delivery team, but also your learners, to make sure that they are working towards interim deadlines as such. And again, it's good practice to incorporate interim deadlines so as they know exactly what work needs to be completed or what research needs to be completed by specific points throughout that academic year. This will allow them to develop that research project in a timely fashion, and therefore be able to incorporate as much knowledge and understanding of the topic area as possible. You can also provide interim deadlines to review drafts of learner work. However, remember, if you do review drafts of learner work, you should ensure that you use your professional judgment and that you don't give excessive guidance or specific guidance as to what they must do to improve that work. You should look at meeting with learners individually so as to monitor and discuss that assignment process, but to ensure that learners are working in an appropriate direction with their research and their projects, and also with that pace in mind, so as to make sure that learners will meet that final deadline for submission. That support that's provided and those meetings that might occur between you and your learners normally work best if there is time allocated within normal centre timetabling, so that they can work on assessments as appropriate. And when we think of research areas, they can be guided appropriately to specific websites, journals, or books to help them to develop that evidence. Remember, the key thing is that you, the tutor, must be able to authenticate the learner work as the learner's own work. And again, this can be done by that regular monitoring process, which means conducting those interim reviews. You can see exactly how much work the learner has undertaken and how much work they still have to do. You can find further guidance for tutors within that theme and topic release document, as I've previously mentioned. That will provide obviously advice and further guidance as to support you, the tutor, but also to support learners through the process. The key thing here with those themes and topics, the theme will be the same as mentioned for the 4 pathways. There will be a choice of 2 topics that will be available for you, the tutor, to choose between. The key point to make here is that you will need to select one of the topics that has been provided for that particular theme. And then you need to construct and design an assignment brief that's based on that topic. When we think of all learners on your particular programme, all learners must complete the same assignment task for the same chosen topic. And there should only be one assignment brief that covers all of those learning aims. As with all other assignment briefs, it should go through the same verification process. So therefore, once you've devised that assignment brief, it should be verified by that lead internal verifier as part of that internal verification process. When we think of development and planning for this unit, it should be individual work that that learner undertakes, and therefore group work is not appropriate for this unit. That research must be done independently, and the learner must produce their research project individually, and therefore it can't be group work or group research projects that are presented. When we link to that, if you are thinking about data collection, you can use small groups of learners so as to generate data appropriately for a specific topic. Therefore, the same data can be used by those learners, but any other group work is not appropriate. Remember, when we are planning for delivery and assessment of this unit, remember that you have 120 guided learning hours allocated for this unit. And therefore, the assignment brief must be developed so as to basically balance the duration of time that's committed to not just delivering that essential content, but also so as to support the learner's development and understanding of those research skills and the time that's going to be necessary to conduct small-scale research and also to complete that assignment. Therefore, that delivery plan for this unit has to incorporate all of those elements. It is actually good practice for you to share the scheme of work with your learners that will also incorporate possibly those interim deadlines so that learners know exactly when they are expected to complete specific areas of that unit. As well as that, that will show them where possible support appointments or tutorials may be incorporated into the delivery of that unit, and also those monitoring timescales throughout that assignment completion. As well as that, you could also incorporate those assignment workshops that will allow learners to be given additional time for development of resource materials, development of assignment evidence, but it might also give learners that additional review element throughout the delivery and assessment of this unit. And therefore be able to provide clarification on specific assessment areas and the requirements of each of those. When we think of that assignment brief, you are going to have to devise that assignment brief yourself so that it links into learner needs. And just to reinforce that, there will be one theme released each academic year. And from that theme, you will have a choice of 2 topics. Those will be outlined on that release document. What that will do is it will provide the learners with a starting point for their research work so that they can explore that theme relevant to that specific topic area. This will then allow them to utilise their investigation, the problem solving, analytical and research skills in that topic of sport. Remember, the type of assignment chosen for that selected topic should allow for a sufficient degree of research to be undertaken by learners. Therefore, those background materials are vital, and directing learners to appropriate background materials will allow for learner success within this unit. Remember, when you're assignment writing, there are specific guidelines that are set out by Pearson in their support documentation. But here, key elements to remember: make clear specifically what that learner must do. Another key thing is to present a vocationally contextualized scenario. And remember that that language must be meaningful to the learner. Therefore, they should be then able to put the assessment requirements into context adequately. That scenario and context should be set in relation to the chosen topic that you, the centre, have chosen. As well as that, you should also specifically state the evidence that needs to be produced in that guidance section of that assignment brief. And you must also include the learner names so that learners understand the requirements of those. But as well as that, you should also outline the requirements of those assessment criteria. Remember, all of these different requirements are set out in that unit specification. The last thing that you do have available to you is that assignment checking service. If we look at it quickly, and I'll just link through to the page just now, here we can see that that assignment checking service is available throughout the academic year. Here, there is a little break currently until the 6th of October, but after that point, you can submit your assignment brief that you've devised for Unit E to be looked over by a subject specialist. What they will do is they will look at the assignment brief and make sure that it's fit for purpose. When you're on this specific page, all you have to do is just click on the Access Service button that I'm highlighting just now, and then you can upload that assignment brief so as to have it reviewed by that sector specialist, but also to be provided with any feedback where they feel is necessary in order to make that assignment as accessible as possible to your learners. Remember, this is a free service and is an on-demand service, so you can upload your assignment brief at any point. Obviously, they are just closed for their summer holidays currently up until the 6th of October. If you are listening to this recording post the 6th of October, then you can upload them as and when you are finished devising those assessment materials. Remember, with that interim review, that is devised so as you can look at your learner progress. Here, we are looking to try and provide that learner with guidance and support in relation to that assignment generation or assignment evidence generation. And therefore, you are looking at trying to provide learners with support to specific websites or books that they could do research from, and also to ensure that they have produced a safe and an effective proposal that will generate adequate evidence to meet the requirements of this particular unit. You should always encourage your learners to look at those assessment criteria and also to have a review of the requirements that are set out within that essential information for assessment decisions, so as to allow them to produce necessary evidence to fully meet the requirements that are set out within that unit. As well as that, moving forwards, you can then set meaningful targets and review points with that learner so as to make sure that they will meet their final deadline for that research project that has been set by you. Next thing I want to do, I want to just bring up on screen that Pearson Set Assignment Guidance document. So again, we can see the link here, which you should be able to click and access. If I click onto this, let me just log in, everybody. From here, you should be able to gain access to that specific guidance document for that particular year. So you can see that this is for all of those 4 qualifications, as I previously mentioned. And you can also see that this is issue 2. So this is the 2nd academic year that Unit E has been available to centres for those diploma or extended diploma sizes of qualifications where relevant. If we look through this document, we can also see that guidance that's provided. So part A is that introduction, looking at the role of you, the tutor, looking at guidance for you as to how to implement the units. It also gives you guidance and further guidance on how to write an effective assignment brief, how to link in those interim reviews. And then also from here, it provides some guidance for learners that you should really share with your cohort. As well as that, we can then see part B. Part B includes those themes and topics, as well as a teaching and learning plan for this Unit E delivery and assessment purpose. It also provides with some assessment guidance and some resources and support that might be applicable and utilised by you and your learners. So we can see here that obviously it outlines what your role is, gives you some guidance, and then from there, if I just scroll past this, we will get to section B, which is the key area. This is what will tell you the theme and the topics that have been set for that academic year. So when we look at it here, remember this is only for use for academic year 21-22. We're looking at that evolution of technology in sport, as I previously mentioned. Again, it will link specifically to that vocational pathway. So you should be looking at getting learners to think about the types of technology that are utilised in their vocational pathways or their sporting backgrounds, perhaps, if we're looking at that performance and excellence pathway, and then being able to apply it appropriately to that investigation or that research project. So the theme is that evolution of technology, and the topics, as mentioned previously, will be different for those 4 pathways. So we can see here that for coaching and development, you're looking at possibly enhancing the quality of coaching through technology, or changing the experience for the participant through fitness technology. For sport, fitness and personal training, again, it can be linked to fitness technology, but looking at how changes in lifestyle and attitude to fitness technology apply within that pathway. We then have sport and excellence and performance, and here the impact of technology on elite performer during training, as well as analysing performance during competition and match play. So again, 2 options there. Lastly, that's sport and outdoor activities. 2 options. First one is the use of technology to advance the experience of outdoor provision, or it could be in relation to the transformation of technology on children and outdoor play. So again, you, the centre, must choose one of those specific topics that relates to the vocational pathway of qualification that you are delivering to your learners. If we move forwards on this document, you will then come to the teaching and learning plan. That teaching and learning plan has been developed thinking about each of those learning aims, as well as the key content areas, and how you might deliver those to your learners. So it does suggest activities and possibly assessment points that could be incorporated into those different sessions. Again, it covers all of those necessary learning areas so that learners are adequately prepared for this process. Again, you can access this at any point and download it so that you can review it throughout your delivery of this particular unit. Remember, the guidance document will be published by Pearson on an annual basis. Therefore, the theme and the topic will change each academic year. So in relation to this year's topics, there are some support websites that provide you with, in some cases, basic information around technology, but also in other cases, particular research that's been undertaken in relation to different types of technology. You can link into these at any point. And again, we can look at different areas. So the first couple relate to those coaching elements and how technology can help coaching, or how the quality of coaching can be enhanced through technology. As well as that, there are also links into those different types of fitness technology that are available and how that changes the experience of your participants through the utilisation of these different types of fitness technology. As well as that, there are some basic elements that link to electronic timing and its utilisation within sport, and providing advantages and disadvantages that can be found on the BBC Bitesize website. As well as that, there are other areas that link into technology and sporting performance. Again, you can access these websites at your leisure by clicking on those links or copy and pasting those links into your search engine. There are a couple of websites that I'd just like to review quickly with you so that you can see how to utilise them. First one is this free journal support website that if I just click on that website, it will take you to the main interface for that sports medicine area. These journals are all free and will provide you with access to specific free years. So we can see that some of them are ranging up to 2006, some are 2010. But if we look at the Journal of Athletic Training and that International Society for Sports Nutrition and the Sports Science area, they range to the present day. So any current research can be found on their specific websites. Again, really easy to access, everybody. And all you need to do is just link onto that webpage. From there, you just use the search bar and you could search for any aspect, whether it be fitness technology, whether it be coaching technology, whether it be specific to individual sports, such as timing gates, or if we think of that performance and excellence aspect, it could link into the use of VAR within that football environment. So therefore, you can link into any aspect of technology that you think relates to the topic area that your learners have to produce that research project in relation to. Another really useful research page is Google Scholar. And here, having already done the search for the technology and sport area, if we just link into this, and again, you can see just utilising that key search term, technology and sport, there's over 2.5 million hits. There are free book access. We've also got a variety of different journal articles that relate specifically to the application or the utilisation of different types of technology in sport. And if we just scroll through here, we can see there's also areas in relation to the impact of technology in sport, the role of technology in sports. It also links into virtual reality. And again, there are lots and lots of good journal articles, as well as websites that might support you as well as your learners through developing that evidence that's necessary and that research that's necessary to be successful in this research project unit. I have highlighted on screen here a few of those more useful documents from that second page of hits from that Google Scholar search. So you've got the advances in application of that information technology to sport performance, the impact of technology in sports, and how it has improved sport, technology in the future of sport. So that links into the avenues that technology might move into throughout the future of sport performance, sports participation, the role of science and technology in sport. And then also that last one is the application of motion capture technology for that purpose of sports performance analysis. So again, it really depends on the topic area that you've chosen for your learners, which ones of these variety of websites that might be useful to you in directing your learners to appropriate research areas. The quality assurance aspect, remember, in relation to Unit E, this unit will be included in the annual sampling by your standards verifier. In terms of the process for this academic year 21-22, that will be outlined at the start of September 2021 in the Centre Guide to Quality Assurance. Therefore, it's really key to keep up to date with any changes that will be published in that document. You can find that document on the Pearson website, which you can search for from either the main page, or you can search for the BTEC Centre Guide to Quality Assurance via the search engine of your choice, and it should come up as one of the first hits on that search. Again, that will outline the process, and it will also tell you exactly how many learners' work will be reviewed as part of this sampling process. Remember, sampling changes on an annual basis, so it's vital that you download the most up-to-date quality assurance guide that's available for your level of programme. So we have looked at some support, some websites, some different areas where you might find some useful journal articles, some useful books to help with the delivery as well as the research that your learners have to undertake. There are some other support options available to you to help you to deliver your BTEC qualification successfully. The first area is that Sport 2019, Sport Plus 2019 delivery resources. So the first thing that I would like to review is the introduction to the Sport Plus area. Now that we've reviewed the video and had a quick introduction to that Sport Plus website, app-based digital resource, just a quick overview to the units that are available as part of that Sport Plus 2019 edition, which is designed to support and develop learners on this suite of qualifications. There are resources for quite a few of the units. So there are resources for this Unit E, which is what we're here to talk about today, but there's also resources for other units that are applicable across those 4 pathways. So there are resources for that Unit A, Careers in Sport and Active Leisure Industry, Unit B, health, wellbeing and sports. Unit C1, developing coaching skills. Unit D1, applied coaching skills. There's also resources there for Unit C2, fitness skills development, and Unit D2, personal trainer skills. As well as that, some of those other optional units, such as Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 4. So a variety of different units that are available on that Sport Plus application. Remember, you've got the option to purchase each unit as an individual unit that will provide a learning pack with those quizzes, formative assessments, activities that can be utilised by your learners in lessons, or you can purchase them as a learning pack with groups of units bunched together specifically for different pathways. So again, you'll be able to find that information out on that Sport Plus 2019 website, which you can find the link to on the Pearson Sport website. The beauty of the Sport Plus application is that it can be accessed via a variety of electronic devices. Therefore, it can be through computers within the school or college learning environment. It can be utilised through laptops, mobile devices, both on iOS and Android software. Again, you can utilise it as front of class teaching, or it could be utilised for independent learning. So therefore, a variety of uses within the teaching and learning environment. Other resources that are available. We've obviously got the main Sport 2019 webpage, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. That looks like this. Here, you've got the option to link into whichever pathway it is that you're teaching. So we can see here, click in those links. And as well as that, it will provide you with just some background to the actual vocational area and the purpose of each of those 4 pathways and the qualifications set within them. If we have a quick review of just one of these areas, this will show you obviously where to find that Unit E guidance. And here we would just click on to the internal assessment area, and then we've got the guidance area that we click into. That's where we will find that Unit E set guidance that you will have to download and work to the standards that are set out there. Again, that will change each academic year. As well as that, you can also see that you've got those BTEC sport and industry standards that might well apply to your qualification that you're delivering. And if we just have a quick review of this, this links specifically to the standards as set out by those professional bodies that endorse the qualifications. So here, that will either relate to SIMSPA or the IOL, the Institute for Outdoor Learning. Again, it provides an overview as to the professional standards, not just at level 3, but for some of those level 2 sport industry skills areas. If you want to get any further information, all you have to do is just again link into that qualification suite that you're currently delivering, and that will provide you with the most up-to-date information for that particular pathway in relation to the industry standards that have been set out. As well as that, there will be other on-demand pre-recorded training that might well be available for you. And again, you can find that on the Pearson website via the Training from Pearson area. Here we are looking at BTEC Nationals. If we click onto there, and then again, just choose your particular pathway. Let's go for sport fitness, personal training this time. Here, this is the getting started on-demand resource. And therefore that will help you to understand how to get started with the qualification if you have just started teaching this particular pathway. Again, there are different on-demand sessions and resources available for those different pathways of qualifications. Lastly, moving forwards after this session, you can get in touch with your subject advisor for sport, who is Penny Lewis, and she can be contacted via a variety of different avenues. The main way is through that support portal that you can see there, or you can choose to either email Penny or you can send her a tweet. She is normally quite quick at returning your message as such, or responding to your message, and therefore she should get back to you normally within about a 48-hour turnaround. Any questions that you've got, or any help or any further guidance that you need in relation to not just Unit E that we've looked at today, but any other aspects of your Sport 2019 qualification, Penny would be your first port of call, and she will be more than happy to help you with any queries that you have. There is at the bottom of the screen there the latest news on COVID-19 and the impact that it might have on your future delivery, and particularly through this 21-22 academic year. You can again find that support on the Pearson website, and there are specific guidance documents that are available in relation to COVID-19 and the impact that it might have on your teaching this academic year. So again, a really useful document to have a review of. So hopefully this pre-recorded training was useful. It provided you with the necessary areas of knowledge that will help you to implement this unit, not just teaching, but also helping your learners to develop resources and do the appropriate research for this particular unit moving forward this academic year. Thanks for attending, and I wish you every success in your delivery of not just Unit E, but your chosen pathway of BTEC Sport qualifications.